We're getting ready for a UConn advanced sellout. UConn Xavier coming up Saturday, a rematch of a game we saw last week. Steven Sanzari is back with me to go and talk all things UConn before we then get to my interview that I've got with Adam Baum of the Cincinnati Enquirer, who's going to fill us in on what's been a bit of a roller coaster season for Xavier. So, Steven, welcome back to the podcast.
It's great to be back, Jared. Great to be back.
And we're coming off a couple wins here. Steven, take me through. Last night was the Seton Hall game. What do you like out of this team in that game last night?
What I liked about this team was, I don't know, like overall, I mean, you can't argue with the top three guys scoring in double digits. You know, you have Sanogo, you have Martin and Cole. When you have those guys going on for you, the odds are you're not going to lose the game. So that's a big pointer. Some of the other guys, there was some limited minutes from Hawkins. He got 5 points. He didn't look too bad. He's slowly, I'm slowly liking how his role is fitting with the team. But overall, they got the job done. That's all that matters, right? It wasn't the prettiest game. The first half was very ugly shooting wise, but when you get the job done, who cares, right?
Exactly. No, one thing that got me excited about this team, and I know you mentioned Hawkins only had 5 points, but it looks like he's really starting to pick it up defensively, which you haven't seen from him in as much in games past. He really wasn't getting blown by anyone. He was staying with guys, and if he's going to do that, that's what's going to get him more minutes in Dan Hurley's eyes. I think the threes you get from him, the offense he brings is great, but when it comes to this team, everything always seems to go back to the defense, which they played great defense yesterday too, for most of that game. So if Hawkins can give you that, you can only see his role going up from there.
Yeah, and I'm a big Hawkins guy. I've been a big Hawkins guy since day one, since I saw him in the private or the open practice at Gampel at the beginning of the year. I just think he's the kind of guy that Hurley's been missing all these years in the early years here at UConn. If he comes, next year, if he improves and he becomes the shooter that we think, I think that's the missing piece overall with the team. Because I know maybe we'll talk about this later on in the pod, but like guys like Cole and Martin, I still think they come back next year. I know a lot of people have had some debate on that, but I think if they come back and Hawkins is improved, next year, if Hawkins fills in that missing piece, the shooter, the dominant shooter, but no, he's definitely improved defensively. And like you said, whatever you can get on offense, get out of him on offense is a plus.
No, it's kind of crazy too, to even think about Tyrese and RJ being able to come back for another year. It seems a little unfair, but I'll take it. If they want to come back, I don't think UConn fans would complain.
No.
I think another part from last night that had been missing a little bit because he'd been getting in some foul trouble was a pretty complete game from Adama Sanogo. I feel like his first foul, I think, came with like 2 or 3 minutes left in the game, which is something we haven't seen in a while from him. It seems like he's been picking up 2 fouls before the under 12 first half timeout. So to get to see him get extended run and show what he can do when he's out on the court, he was a difference maker all around. And it's not like Seton Hall doesn't have size going up against him. And he was dominating some, mid-major front court that's got a 6'8" guy. Obiagu's 7'1", and you saw what he was able to do out there. So it's really promising to see that even though he's had a little bit of a rough stretch in terms of fouls and some production, he really brought it to, last night.
Yeah, you talk about the fouls. I'm looking at it right now. He only got called for 1 foul in the whole game. That's like almost unbelievable. Like I would have been like, yeah, you're lying. And now I'm looking at it now. It's 1 foul. That's huge.
Yeah.
He went for 20 points and 16 rebounds. That's a monster game. He's a beast. If he stays out of foul trouble, they're going to be in every game that they play in the rest of the way, including the tournament. He is the key. He's the best player on the team. If he gets it going, he's just as good as any center, I think, in the country. And that's, no pun intended, that's huge for UConn.
Yeah. And one thing that I think is really big, and no pun intended there either, is that you're really seeing him start to develop into a bit of a passer too. It's not like the ball just goes in down low and it just gets sucked up there and that's it. He's kicking out to guys, and if you're gonna have open shooters out there, knocking down the shots is another thing, but you're at least giving these guys good looks from 3 to knock some shots down, which is only going to help this team down the stretch here.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was the biggest problem, especially, you look back at some of those early games and some of the games in the Atlantis. I mean,
Yeah.
he was struggling to kick it out. I mean, if he had kicked out a couple times there instead of, forcing up a bad shot, you never know. I mean, these games, they can flip, the scores can flip and maybe you have a win or two there, because
Yeah.
there was, like I said, like early on, there was a lot of those tough games that they played. The ball would get down low and then you would never see it get back out. And we would get an empty possession out of it. So it's nice to see, like last night, I'm looking at it, he had 2 assists. I mean, it's just good to see him
Yeah.
just swing the ball out, get the ball out there. If it's not there, it's not there. I mean, there's no
Yeah.
there's no point in forcing it. And everybody knows that the ball's going down there. Everybody knows
Right.
that UConn's offense centers around Sonogo. They don't have that dominant guard that could go off. They have guys that have the ability to, but on a night,
On a consistent bit.
yeah, on
Yeah.
a consistent night to night basis, I mean, they don't have that guy where it's like, oh my God, like, RJ Cole. Like, RJ Cole's a great player, but he's not consistent enough on offense to be like, oh, we got a double team and we got to make sure he doesn't beat us.
Yeah. No, good points there. And I think against the Xavier team, we saw Sonogo get in foul trouble really quickly in that game. So I think that's going to be huge on Saturday. If the game can be called like it was last night, Jack Nungy went off in that game for Xavier. I think he had 22 points. And if you've got Sonogo on him, I think it makes life tougher for him, which UConn needs, because again, he's shown what he can do, and just having him and his presence out there is big. I,
No,
I,
yeah.
I mean, you saw it too in that game against Xavier, especially in the second half, where Paul Scruggs was able to just kind of get his way to the rim at ease, and there was no one there to really try to block shots. Again, because Sonogo was limited with foul trouble, and you have to pick your spots there. If you could play him and have him stay on the floor there, you need that in a game like this.
Well, look at the last 2 big losses that they've had. I mean, on the road at Xavier and on the road at Villanova. I mean, both teams took the front court out. They took
Yeah.
basically Sonogo and Whaley became non-fact. I mean, Whaley more in the Villanova
Nope.
game because they
Yeah.
both got too very quick.
Too quick. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, you take them out, that's like a dream for the opponent. I mean,
Yeah.
you get those 2 guys out, it's a problem. Especially, like Whaley maybe doesn't fill up the stats on offensively, but defensively, I mean, he's the best player they have. So you take him out, it's tough. It's tough. I mean, who are we going with? We're going with Samson Johnson down there,
Yeah.
that guy that's played I don't know how many minutes total on the year, or you got to go small. So you take them out, it's a problem for UConn, but last night was a plus.
Yeah. No, last night I think was the key in this stretch of games here too. You've got 3 games at home. At least the first 2 are games that you think should be pretty winnable at home. And Villanova is always going to be tough, regardless of whether you're playing them home or away. But being able to start off this 3-game stretch with a win is big, because it takes a little bit of pressure off the team. And it also helps build some momentum here. You've coming off 2 good wins over St. John's and Seton Hall. We saw what St. John's did to Xavier last night, beating them by 13. Again, I don't think St. John's is as bad as their record says. I think they're a bit better, especially now that they've got Posh Alexander back in the lineup. But I think this is a big spot for UConn on Saturday to continue to show that, hey, if we lose to a team on the road, we're going to take them at home and beat them.
No, this is probably the biggest stretch. I mean, obviously it's the end of the year and we're working for seeding the Big tournament, but this is the biggest stretch of the year for them. This is where they could really, show the country, like, all right, this team is a legit team. You beat Xavier and Villanova and Seton Hall in a 3-game stretch. I mean, that's huge. Yeah. I mean, and then, we're talking about, I don't know, maybe they could get one of those top 2 seeds. Not that there's really a difference between 2 and 3.
Yeah.
But it's still, you would love to just finish. I mean, if they could finish second place and finish where they were projected,
yeah,
that would be great. But you go out there and you win at home against Xavier, and you win against, and then somehow maybe even if you play competitive with Villanova, it shows that we're not a pushover team. Like we belong at the top of the Big East standings, and we're going to be a serious team when it comes March.
And if the crowds are what they continue to be, it's going to give you kind of an advantage at home, whether it's at XL or Gampel. I know I was away for the game at Marquette, but it seemed like XL had a pretty good crowd from that one, and it certainly was great last night against Seton Hall.
Oh yeah. I mean, I think as someone who's been to all the games so far this year, I mean, I think Seton Hall is probably the best game for the crowd. because the students. I mean, the students showed up. They were there an hour before a tip, which was remarkable to me, at least on the what's their real side that they're always on. But the overflow filled in. But no, the Seton Hall game, definitely best crowd of the year. And Marquette was great too. I mean, it wasn't a sold out XL Center, but it was loud in there as well.
Yeah.
So, and it was huge because they needed that crowd support for that. That was a huge win for them last week.
Yeah, and I think you saw it both in the Marquette game and last night, that this team is starting to get to a point where they're taking leads and being able to build on them and grow leads. So when the opponent ultimately does make a run, it's cutting it from 10 to 6. And it's not going from 4 to now you're down 2 because they went on a spurt there. You saw that against Marquette. Every time Marquette tried to punch back at them and cut it to 2 or 3, UConn was able to grow that lead back. Same thing last night when Seton Hall tried to get back in it. UConn kept continuing to build that lead, pushed it to 10-11. And that ultimately helps, especially down the stretch, in case they miss some front end or 1-on-1s again. Having that 10-point cushion is a lot different than having a 5-point cushion there.
Yeah, I mean, it gets talked about all the time, like basketball, especially college basketball. It's just a game of runs.
Yeah,
the problem with UConn was, especially at the beginning of the year, like, okay, they go on runs, but then they would just give them right back and then lose the lead. Last night you take the lead and then maybe you give up a run to Seton Hall, but you have that answer. You answer right back with one of your own. That was what they were struggling with, and now they're slowly starting to show that they could answer back, like you said. Like if they get punched in the mouth, they can come right back and then just build up the lead again.
And I think that's a big sign of growth for this team too, is that they're just starting to play a lot more confidently, even offensively. Even when the shots aren't falling, the sets look a little bit crisper. It just looks like they're playing with a really focused purpose with everything they're doing, which is what you want to see out of a team this time of the year as you get ready for conference tournament time and closing out this home stretch here, which I can't believe it's already the last couple home games.
It's unbelievable. It goes by it takes so long to get there. Right? It takes forever to get to November, and then once you hit November, it goes by. It goes by in like 2 seconds. It feels like.
So we'll wrap with this, Steven. Your prediction for Xavier.
Well, I think we blow Xavier out. I mean, that game last week at Xavier was so frustrating to watch because I'm not even being cocky and being the UConn fan. I think we're better than Xavier, and I think we're good enough to win at Xavier. And I don't know, it just wasn't a crisp game from them. There was a lot of mistakes being made. The technical fouls were frustrating. The officiating was frustrating. So I think UConn's gonna be all pumped up. It's gonna be a sold out Gampel, 12 o'clock Saturday. It feels like it's been, I don't know, 50 years since we've had a 12 o'clock Saturday game against a good opponent at Gampel. So I really think they're gonna come out and they're gonna be, I don't know, I think they're gonna shoot very well too. And Xavier's a good shooting team too. So, but I think UConn's gonna blow them out. I don't know. It's my gut. So if you're betting, if you're a bettor, I would lay the points. We don't have a spread out yet. I would lay them. All right. Yeah. There's not going to be another bad beat like last night. Okay. If you had the 5.5, I'm sorry. I'm sorry about that 5.5 point beat.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I don't know if I'm going to, go be as confident and say blowout, but like, I'll say 7 to 8 point win. Like it's going to be comfortable. I feel like maybe you get a little bit of drama in the first half, but I feel like it kind of follows a similar script to yesterday where they're able to build on it throughout the second half, pull away a bit, and, just kind of keep their distance and keep it at a comfortable lead. So
yeah, I'll take that too. Take that too.
I mean, come this time of year, as long as you win, like at this point, I don't care about the margins. Like, they win every game by 1, so be it. Like, just get wins.
It doesn't matter, right? Yeah. I mean, you get into the tournament. I mean, think about 2014. We barely beat St. Joe's. We have an overtime squeaker. Everyone's crying about it, and then you end up winning the national championship. So I mean, it doesn't matter. You just win. You got to win.
Exactly. February, March, just win. That's what the mantra is. But Steven, appreciate your time, and it's fun to get back in doing these. And now we'll get to my interview with Adam Baum of the Cincinnati Enquirer to fill us in on all things Xavier. All right, joining me today, we've got Adam Baum from the Cincinnati Enquirer here to preview UConn Xavier. Adam, thanks so much for coming on today.
Yeah, thanks for having me again, man.
Yeah, so I want to start by looking at the matchup that we saw pretty recently in just last week. It's kind of rare you see teams play, within a span of a week here, but that's what we're getting with UConn Xavier. take us through your thoughts on that first matchup. Of course, Xavier came up on top 74-68 in that one, but curious to get your initial thoughts, especially on getting to see UConn in person for the first time.
Yeah, I thought the two things in particular really stood out to me. And number one was from a UConn perspective. I thought the game really changed when Sonogo and RJ Cole both got 2 fouls pretty early in the game. They didn't get to really be factors in the first half, I felt like. And the other thing that I was really surprised by, Xavier's front court really got the better of UConn. Jack Nungy and Zach Fremantle. And I think a big part of that was Sonogo and him sort of being sequestered to the bench early in the game. He didn't really get into a rhythm. He didn't get to make much of an impact. So I think if you look at this rematch, I can only imagine Dan Hurley's, what the message that he's sending to his guys is going to be, hey, they beat us inside last time. They beat us on the glass. I'm expecting that we're going to see a very physical, very motivated UConn team in this game. So it's going to be interesting from my perspective to see which Xavier team shows up, honestly.
Yeah, no, it definitely seems like it's been a roller coaster ride of late for Xavier. In terms of Jack Nungy, a guy you mentioned there who really gave UConn issues, I think it ended up with 22 points in that game last week. How have you seen other teams neutralize him a bit and take him out of the game a little bit, or at least lessen his impact that UConn might be looking to do come Saturday?
Yeah, well, I think it starts with, Jack he's been a problem, especially in Big East play. He didn't shoot it great last night against St. John's, and we can talk about that if you want. But
yeah,
the problem that he's presented to a lot of teams is that if you have a really good big man, a guy who can really defend and make it hard on down there in the low post, Jack's been able to stretch those guys away from the basket because he's been shooting, I think he's shooting 41% in Big East play from 3-point range. So we've seen this theme with Xavier recently when they're playing well, where Jack's been able to get a big man away from the basket, and that has really helped Xavier's offense as a whole.
Yeah.
But I think that the big thing about Jack is that he's smart and he can play with his back to the basket down there on the low post. He can finish through contact. We saw him do that against UConn a number of times. And then this sort of new wrinkle that's developed in Big East play where they've been very comfortable moving him away from the basket and letting him take 3-point shots. It's been a really big development. I think that's, if you're going to stop that, you need to have a guy that can move out there on the perimeter with him. And then also I think the big thing is you need to make it really hard to get him the ball down in the low post, because if anything, Jack Nungy has proven that if he gets the ball down there, he either A, gets a high percentage shot, or he's shown that he's very capable of passing out of the low post. So doubling him down there isn't really an option because he can make the right play and find the open guy. So I think number one, it's you have to respect his perimeter game to stop him. And number two, you have to make the ball really hard to get down there inside to him, because once he gets it down there, he's a problem.
It's going to be interesting to see, because just looking at the rematches UConn has played this year, they've done a pretty good job of making some changes and adjustments and limiting guys who have really burned them the first time they played. I know we saw it last night with Kadari Richmond at Seton Hall, who had killed UConn in the first game, and they really tried to put the clamps down on him a little bit. Another guy I know that's giving UConn some trouble, and you saw it especially in the second half of that game last week, was Scruggs. What is the game plan on Scruggs? He seemed to be able to get to the rim at will in that second half after kind of struggling a bit in the first half. What have you seen from him this year? And again, from a UConn perspective, what are you looking to do, and what have some teams done to slow him down a little bit?
Well, funny enough, you mentioned slow him down. I think the key for Scruggs is speeding him up, because for a guy who's a fifth-year senior, there are times when I think you can speed him up and he gets a little careless with the basketball. He does have turnover problems. The other thing that Scruggs does, and he was very successful with this against UConn, but he was able to get to the rim. And there's a lot of times where Scruggs loves to attack. He loves to get downhill. He loves to drive and try to get to the basket. But if you do a good job defending him and you don't give him good looks once he gets there, that's where he gets himself in trouble. He has this tendency to over dribble, over penetrate, and sort of get caught in no man's land. And that's when he gets careless and turns the ball over. So I think from UConn's perspective, you want to try to speed him up and make him play a little bit out of control. Because I think if Paul Scruggs plays at his own pace and he plays under control, he's really good at getting to his spots and making shots. But there have been a lot of times this year where it felt like he gets a little dribble happy. He gets sped up a little too much in key spots. And that's when the game sort of gets away from him and gets out of hand. So I think from UConn's perspective, if you can sort of speed him up, give him a lot of heavy ball pressure when he has it, you can sort of produce some turnovers, I think.
Yeah, we've seen a little bit more pressure from UConn of late too. So that'll be interesting to see if they apply that to him. And I think too, with getting to the rim, I think it'll be interesting if you've got Sonogo and Whaley and Andre Jackson, defending around the rim and not being in the foul trouble that they were in that first game, and can be a little bit more aggressive on him as he drives. I know a guy who got injured of late was Nate Johnson. What's the status on him? I know he didn't play yesterday against St. John's. Are they expecting him back for this UConn game?
Yeah, we're gonna get a press conference with Travis Steele. His pregame press conference for UConn is in about 3 hours. So we should get a better idea then. But I will say, based on sort of what Steele said, he went through all the MRIs, all the tests. He didn't tear anything. He was really just dealing with a bunch of soreness. Mm-hmm. And I saw Nate before the St. John's game last night. He was in his uniform. He had a knee brace on his knee, and he was going into their auxiliary gym. And I'm anticipating that he was doing that to see if he could play. So yeah, I think that, we'll find out today if he's going to return to practice, but the sort of the way that they made everything sound, the way that Travis talked about it, it seemed like it was sort of a 1-game thing, but who knows? And we saw it last night. Nate's super important to Xavier's team. He's a guy who can defend. He's their best 3-point shooter. And for a team that has not been shooting the ball well from the perimeter, they need Nate Johnson down the stretch.
Looking at this team in the bigger picture, from Xavier's perspective, what has been the deal of late for this team? I know we mentioned it's been a bit of a roller coaster for them. I know, they lost 3 of 4 with UConn being that one win in there. And they played well in a game they really had to win at home, you would think, against UConn to keep their season kind of afloat. What's the state of things right now within the Xavier program?
Yeah, well, I think it might be the most confusing thing that I've seen from Xavier in my time covering the team, because I've watched this team play really good basketball at times this year. I watched them dominate Ohio State early in the year, a game that they did not even trail in. They beat Marquette, they beat UConn, they played Villanova tough twice, they played Providence tough, they just beat you. It doesn't make sense to me how this team can go through stretches where they play really well, and then they go through stretches where last night where it's like they could not play an ounce of defense. You lose to DePaul at home, you lose to St. John's at home. Right now they're just stuck in this weird cycle. Roller coaster is the perfect way to put it, because, and this is one of the things that I'm going to ask Steele about today, but it seems like recently they may be getting caught a little bit in playing to the level of their perceived competition. They sort of lay an egg against DePaul. They don't come out and play with any kind of defensive intensity against St. John's. But 4 days earlier, they go toe-to-toe with UConn and defend really well, play with toughness, do all these little things that are necessary and impact winning. But they can't do it from game to game. And that's the weirdest thing to me, where it's like you have momentum after beating UConn. You put 40 minutes together for the first time in 2 months, and you're unable to go out there and do it again against St. John's. And I think that's really been the story of this team, is that you can play bits and pieces, maybe a half, maybe a game really well, but we have not seen this team, especially in Big East play, go from game to game and string a positive performance into the next one. And that's a really dangerous place to be for this team right now. So, you know, I'm working on a follow-up story this morning. Xavier's next 3 games at UConn, at Providence, home against Seton Hall. Average net ranking of those 3 teams is 27. So
big stretch.
We're going to find out a lot about this team and sort of their mentality and what they're truly made of, because they're a bad ending away from not having another good offseason. So
yeah, and I was going to kind of segue into that. At this point in the season, I know you mentioned some of the good wins they've had, but they've also had those bad losses. Are you still confident that this could be an NCAA tournament team here in Xavier?
I am. And you know, I think the primary difference this year as opposed to the last few years is Xavier's not really on the bubble right now. Now, that doesn't mean that they can't sink there, but the last few years they haven't finished the right way, and they've been on the bubble when doing that. So that's a big difference this year. But I know from a Xavier fan perspective, they don't want to like back into the NCAA tournament or sort of stumble their way in there. You know, you want to finish with some momentum. And the crazy thing about this team is you could make an argument that they completely combust down the stretch, and everything that can go wrong does go wrong, and maybe they miss the NCAA tournament. And you could also make an argument that maybe they make the NCAA tournament and they do something remarkable once they get there. That's sort of the enigma of this team right now, is that you just, on a given night, you just don't know which team's going to show up. And I think that's an uncomfortable place to be right now if you're a Xavier fan.
I'll wrap with this one. Heading into the game on Saturday, give us a takeaway or a couple things you're really looking to see out of this game in this matchup between these two teams.
Yeah, I think for me, everything, like, we didn't really get to see Sanogo's true potential last Friday because of the foul trouble. I have a feeling that he's going to have a much better game, but for me, it's about RJ Cole. Xavier did not do a great job defending him, and I think RJ Cole gets more credit than Xavier gets blamed for that, because I think he's just a dynamic player who knows how to get his shot, and he's really good when he gets that shot. So I'm wondering if Xavier is going to do anything different to sort of slow him down, because this is a big game for Xavier. And I just think that based on what happened a week ago, UConn's going to be highly motivated. So Xavier's probably going to get punched in the mouth in this game, not literally, but figuratively. And I'm curious to see how they respond, because this has been a team at times that has had a really good response to adversity. Unfortunately for them, last night against St. John's, it was the first time this year where they fell apart when they got punched, where they did not have a response. So that's sort of where I'm at in this game, is that I think UConn's going to come out. They're probably going to get off to a good start. I wouldn't be shocked to see UConn build a lead. And then it's a question of, can Xavier respond? Can you handle adversity the right way? So that's sort of my takeaway in this one.
Awesome. Well, Adam, really appreciate the time. I know everyone's looking forward to this rematch on Saturday. So thanks so much for coming in and talking with us today.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing you on Saturday. It's my first trip to Connecticut.
All right.
I'm excited. It's another state that I can cross off my list. So.
There you go. And it's going to be a good environment. I know the environment at Xavier last week looked to be a pretty good one. And I know that they're expecting the same in stores this weekend. So it makes for a fun game.
Yep. I'm looking forward to it, Jared. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Anytime. Thanks, Adam.